I used to be something valuable. I know how that sounds. Arrogant, nostalgic, dramatic, but it's the truth. In a world of disposable plastic lighters, I was a statement. Brushed metal body, stitched leather wrap. A satisfying weight that made you feel like you owned not just a lighter, but a decision. I didn't just light cigarettes. I announced presence. I whispered control. My first owner was a man with quiet eyes and twitchy fingers. I never learned his name. Lighters don't need names, but I remember the first time he held me. Cold palms, dry skin, a flicker of uncertainty beneath the surface. He looked like someone who knew how to keep a secret, and how to burn it. He smoked like it was ritual, not addiction, something more precise. A calculated inhale before difficult meetings, late-night car rides, or awkward silences he needed to dominate. Every time I sparked, it was part of a performance. Not just fire, authority, precision, power. He didn't speak much, but people always spoke around him, especially women. One of them had wide, cautious eyes and a voice that cracked at the ends. She would become his wife. I was there when he first lit a cigarette in front of her. A test, maybe. I don't know if it was love, but I do know that she never looked at him when the flame rose. She always looked away, as if fire revealed something she couldn't face. On their wedding day, I rested in the breast pocket of his suit. No one noticed me. Of course not. Who notices a lighter at a wedding? But I heard the vows. I remember them, word for word. He said he'd love, protect, never lie. That night, he lit a cigarette that tasted different, stronger, sharper. His hand trembled when he used me, just a little. After that, he smoked more, not as ritual, but escape. A reason to step outside, to leave the room, to breathe without answering. Once, I slipped from his pocket as he stormed into the bathroom. I lay face up on cold tile and listened. Through the thin door, voices tangled, not yelling, but sharp, low, slicing like paper. The kind of argument that ends something you didn't know was broken. After that night, I disappeared from his pockets. I was stored quietly in a drawer next to the bed. I shared space with a pistol, a small one, matte black. Unassuming, it wasn't the gun that unsettled me, it was the silence. He'd open the drawer and just look at me, at the gun, at nothing. He no longer needed me for cigarettes. He barely smoked at all. And yet, I stayed waiting, wondering when the next flick would come. Not for a cigarette, for something else. That's when the gasoline smell began. It started faint. The scent clung to his clothes. Then it showed up on his hands. Then, in the trunk of the car, I could feel it, that creeping heat beneath the silence. Something was coming. I used to be something valuable. Now, I'm an object waiting to be used. Not to smoke, to destroy. The first flame wasn't a cigarette, it was rage. The kind that builds in silence, in stares that last too long, in questions that never get answers. I felt it long before I saw it. My owner, the man with the quiet eyes and cold hands, had changed. He no longer looked at me like a tool. He looked at me like a key. The house smelled like gasoline for days before anyone noticed. Faint at first, like a car had leaked in the garage. Then thicker, clinging to the furniture, soaking into the carpet. The woman, his wife, began to ask questions. He laughed them off, said it was the old water heater, or the neighbors, always something else. But I knew, I could feel the truth in the tension of his fingertips every time he opened the drawer. Click. He didn't light me. Just that sound, the click of the wheel against metal, the spark that never caught, like rehearsing, like temptation. Click, still silence. Then, one night, the click became a flame. It wasn't in the drawer, it was in the hallway. Late, so late, the world felt hushed and brittle. He stood in the dark, one hand holding me, the other trembling slightly with a red plastic canister. He was whispering to himself, not words, exactly, more like half-broken phrases, the kind of muttering people do when they've already convinced themselves it's justified. I lit on the first try. The flame danced higher than usual. It always does when you're near fuel. He didn't light the floor, not that night, just a test, a whisper of the future. He blew me out, wiped his face, and put me back in the drawer. But from that moment, something shifted. He'd walk around the house at night, pacing with me in his hand, watching his wife sleep, opening doors slowly, watching her. She started locking the bedroom door. She stopped cooking, stopped smiling. I watched her hands tremble every time she poured a glass of water. I saw how she scanned his face for answers or warnings and found neither. One night she tried to leave, suitcase packed, jacket on. I heard the zipper. I heard the creak of the front door, but he was faster. There was a thud, something soft, a breath sucked in too fast. I didn't see it, but I heard her cry. She didn't leave after that. And then, 2 days later, the smoke alarm chirped. Not screamed, not wailed, chirped. A faint testing sound, as if even the alarm wasn't sure if it should panic yet. That's when it happened. The first true flame. I was pulled from the drawer in a rush. No ceremony, no hesitation. He dragged me into the garage. The smell of gasoline was thick now, almost syrupy. He'd poured it everywhere, over boxes, over blankets, over memories. And with one flick, no rehearsal this time, I burned. I touched cardboard first, then plastic, then cloth. The flames spread like it had been waiting all its life to be real. No pause, no mercy. He stood there for a moment, watching it. I remember the glow on his face. It wasn't satisfaction, it was relief. The kind that comes when something terrible finally happens, when the pressure of not doing it becomes too much. Then he ran. He left me behind. In the chaos, in the heat, he dropped me. I landed face up on a cement floor, my body scorched, my wheel still warm. And from that position, through the rising smoke, I saw something he didn't. Her, she wasn't upstairs. She wasn't asleep. She was in the garage doorway, frozen. She had seen everything, and he didn't know. Not yet. They said it was faulty wiring. Some inspector in a uniform, a clipboard in hand, muttered something about an overloaded breaker and cheap construction. That's what they wrote in the report. Electrical fire. Tragic, unpreventable. I wanted to laugh. No, scratch that. I wanted to scream, but I'm a lighter. I don't have lungs, just scars. Metal warped by heat. Leather cracked. Fuel nearly dry. But not empty, never empty. They pulled me from the ash a week later, gloved hands turning me over, eyes barely interested. Just another object in the wreckage. No one questioned how a fully functional lighter ended up under a pile of scorched insulation right next to the origin point. Because, you see, the house didn't burn down entirely. Half of it survived. Enough to piece together stories. Or lies, depends on who's talking. And he, the man with the calm eyes and gasoline-scented coat, he had a story. She left him, he said. He was out for a drive, he said. He returned to flames. tried to run in, screamed her name, but the fire was too much. The tears came easily. Practice, maybe. Or maybe he really was grieving what he'd done, what he couldn't undo. But I know, because I was there, and so was she. He never mentioned that part, that she was in the garage, frozen in the doorway, watching her husband pour destruction and light the match, or rather, flick the lighter. Me. I saw her eyes, wide, silent, then gone, vanished into smoke as he turned and ran. She didn't scream, didn't chase. She let him flee. I don't know what she did after, but I didn't see her again. Not until the police arrived. They searched the ruins, catalogued debris, pulled him in for questioning, but he had answers. Alibis, calm explanations. She never came forward. Maybe she was afraid. Maybe she thought no one would believe her. Or maybe she had a plan. Days passed, then weeks. I remained buried in the rubble, slightly melted but intact. A forgotten witness. Sometimes I'd feel footsteps nearby, hear whispers, camera shutters, but no one looked at me twice, until he returned, not officially. Just one night, long after the scene was cleared, I heard the crunch of gravel, the soft creak of a boot on burned wood. He walked through the wreckage like a ghost, flashlight dancing across the charred bones of his old life. He stopped where I lay. His foot almost touched me. Then he froze. For a second, I thought he saw me, truly saw me, like I mattered, like he remembered what he'd done with me. To her, but he just exhaled, a long, slow breath, and walked away. That's when I realized he thought he got away with it, that no one knew, that fire had erased the truth, but it hadn't, because I'm still here, and I'm not the only one who remembers. They forgot me, but she didn't. I don't know how much time passed. Days, weeks. It all blurs when you're buried under soot and silence. No heat, no hands, no purpose, just cold metal and memory. They cleared the debris in shifts. Yellow vests, blank expressions, clanking shovels. I was kicked, stepped on, even tossed aside once, mistaken for scrap. But somehow I stayed close, to the place, to the story. I wasn't done yet. And then, one morning, she returned. She didn't come with reporters or detectives. No, she came alone. She wore black. Not the dramatic kind, not funeral black, functional, simple. Her hair was tied up. No makeup. She moved like someone who'd practiced, not trembling. I didn't expect her to find me. There were 100 things more important. Photographs, letters, maybe the wedding ring she stopped wearing a year before the fire. But she wasn't looking for any of that. She was looking for me, and she found me. Her fingers brushed the ashes, lifted me gently, like I was something sacred or cursed. She held me up to the sun, turning me slowly. I saw her expression for the first time since the fire. She wasn't afraid anymore. She didn't flick me, not yet. She just stared and whispered, "I saw what you did." Not to me, to him. And in that moment, I understood. She'd kept the secret not out of fear, but out of patience. Revenge, like fire, needs oxygen. It needs time. Later that night, she sat alone in a motel room, beige walls, buzzing light. I was on the table in front of her, next to an envelope. Inside it, photos, notes, a flash drive, evidence. I don't know how she got it all, but I know what it means. She wasn't planning to run. She was planning to ruin him, and I would be part of it. Not the weapon this time, the proof. The next day, she walked into a lawyer's office with a calm smile and a burned lighter in her pocket. Not much, just a charred piece of metal. But it started everything. I didn't burn the house down, but I lit the match. And now, I was going to help burn the lies. The last time I burned, it wasn't for destruction. It was for truth. After she gave them the files, the notes, the photos, even her own written account, the case reopened. Quietly, at first. The investigators weren't eager to admit they'd missed something, that they'd believed a man who cried on cue and said all the right things. But facts are stubborn, and fire doesn't lie, especially not when it leaves behind something as specific, as damning as me. I was submitted as evidence. Yes, me, a rusted, blackened lighter, not just any lighter, one engraved with his initials, still partially functional, found near the ignition point, and when they looked closer, they found traces of fuel, not electrical sparks, not faulty wires. Gasoline. They tested me, flicked my wheel. I flared to life on the first try, a perfect flame. I heard whispers in the courtroom. Why would he bring a lighter to the garage if it was just faulty wiring? She says she saw him. The injuries on her wrist, did they match the fall she reported months ago? Bit by bit, the narrative unraveled. He took the stand, of course. Cool voice, steady hands. But I could see it, the way his eyes flickered when they held me up in a plastic bag, scorched but undeniable. She didn't look at him, not once. She didn't need to. The jury did. And when the verdict came, she didn't smile. Not out of restraint, but because it didn't change the past. It only named it. Guilty, arson, attempted murder, domestic abuse, fraud. They called it justice, but I knew better. Justice isn't a clean thing. It's not a perfect balance. It's messy, ash-stained, burned at the edges. And sometimes it takes years. She kept me afterward, not as a keepsake, not as a memory, but as a reminder. She placed me on a shelf, right above a small potted plant. Sunlight hits me around 3 p.m. every day. I don't mind the stillness. Not anymore. Because I'm not forgotten. I'm not discarded. I am seen. And every time she walks past, I hear her breathe a little steadier. I may just be an old lighter, but I held 1,000 secrets, and I told the one that mattered.